Go.
Hello sunshine, hello blue sky, SHANARRI.
Safe,
Healthy.
active,
nurtured,
achieving,
Respected.
Responsible.
included.
Now, if you've got kids at school in Scotland, there's one thing I can guarantee they will have learnt about, and that's SHANARRI, the wellbeing indicators from the government's Getting It Right for Every Child scheme. But these wellbeing indicators make sense in some context. If you imagine you're a social worker having to assess the needs of a particular child, maybe having those categories on your form would be helpful. Maybe in schools with some particularly difficult cases, it might be a helpful diagnostic tool to consider these different areas. But at the end of the day, these indicators could be a bit of a fad. In a few years' time, people will change it. There won't be 8 indicators. There might be 10. There might be 3 with 4 subcategories. At the moment, they're in a web. In a few years' time, it might be a tower. Then it might be a pyramid. It's all quite subjective. So it's hardly a breakthrough in developmental psychology. But it can be a valuable and useful thing to be used behind the scenes by professionals dealing with children. The bit I don't get, though, is why do they teach kids about them? Young kids need nurturing, not teaching about nurture as a well-being indicator. Is it that the people who created these well-being indicators are so proud of them that they just got carried away and thought everyone needs to learn about them? On the other hand, do they give the impression that looking after children is somehow the school's idea? Somehow it's the government's idea that they are the people who say that children need to be looked after properly, and so therefore that's what parents do. Can it turn out to appear that schools are checking up with kids, that their parents are doing their job properly? Are children always been invited to assess the quality of the service being offered by their parents? And obviously in extreme cases, that is what we want children to do. We want them to come forward and say if they've been abused or neglected. But this is a universal scheme. Also in Scotland, in the officialdom, there's very definitely a style of parenting that's promoted. And if the children are taught about that and taught that that's the way they should be looked after, then again, it's inviting the children to look at their own parents and just see how good a job they think they're doing. And the incessant checkups on well-being in school, how clear is it made that they're inquiring about well-being within school rather within the home? I think in some cases it clearly is intended to be prying into private life within the home and attempting to influence the way that parents parent and the way that the children interpret their parents' actions. Now you may say that's really unjustified. That's not really what it's all about. Well, let's have a look at a few clips and see what we find.
So we would use it to focus parents' attention on the health and wellbeing indicators, and it lets them understand what it means if your child's really safe or if your child's to be nurtured.
So parents need to know about the wellbeing indicators in order to understand what it means for their child to be safe and to be nurtured. I think parents already knew how to keep children safe and nurtured before the wellbeing indicators came along.
It gives them the language that their children are using, and they begin to understand a bit more about the health and wellbeing curriculum and the needs of their child.
So having taught the kids this jargonese SHANARRI speak, we now need to teach it to the parents so that they can understand their own kids. And when parents understand this, that will enable them to better nurture and better keep safe their own children by learning about the SHANARRI indicators. One has to feel here that the proponents of SHANARRI are somewhat overplaying their hand.
We know our children inside out, and we know exactly what we need to do to help them to achieve success in all areas. We have very supportive parents who are happy to take on board any advice they get from us.
Well, there's no confusion about who's the professional and who are the amateurs there, is there? Now, when I go to the doctor with my son, that's the way I want to be treated. I want the doctor to say, right, this is what the problem is. This is what you need to do. He needs to take this medicine for so long. I want precise instructions. That's great. Maybe even at school, if the teacher said, right, it'd be really good if you practiced his times tables every day for the next couple of months. I quite like that as sort of advice. But how many parents really want general advice on the nurturing and bringing up of their children, the all-encompassing way that the SHANARRI indicators would cover? Not many.
Parents have the right to be involved in decisions about their child and their families.
Does that sound reassuring to you? It makes me feel a little uneasy. How would you feel if someone said, you've got every right to be involved in the decision about who you're going to marry? They're saying, we control the process, but we're willing to give you a place at the table. So who else do they bring into this decision-making process? Obviously, the professionals, the experts, but who else?
It means that you and your child will be fully involved in any processes and decisions which affect you.
My new understanding of girl fact has shown me the importance of listening to my child and involving them in decisions that affect them.
So you can see who's involved in this decision-making process. It's the state, it's the parents, and also the child. That can be a perfectly valid approach in some contexts, and that's also commended in the home. We should be listening to children more. Now, by listening, obviously they mean we should be giving them what they ask for more, not just listening to their views, but taking them on board and responding to them positively. Now, all parents will have their own view on the ideal balance between laying down the law, making decisions on behalf of children, giving them some leeway. It's an age and stage thing. But the Scottish Government, I think, would take quite a one-sided position and will be heading towards turning the family into a democracy, increasing the power of children, reducing the authority of parents.
Changing the way adults think and act to help all children and young people grow and develop. And
change the way adults think and act to allow all young people to grow and develop. So it's government policy to change the way you think and act with regard to your kids. Now, how can they do that? It's quite hard to reach adults with that message. It's much easier to reach the kids. They can teach the kids about how adults and parents should really be treating them. There's something awry in the government's philosophy of childcare and education. There's an over-reliance on professional and expert opinion as the fount of all wisdom. There's a view that parents are the amateurs who really need a bit of re-education. They need to change their ways. And kids need to be given more power. The family needs to be democratized. Then there's a sense that there's an overarching role for the state in supervising family life. Notice I've reached those conclusions without even getting onto the named person scheme. In a couple of videos soon, I'm going to look at the named person scheme and also go for an adventure in the Wellbeing Wood with Sid and SHANARRI. If you don't want to miss them, subscribe to our channel.